her scream carved through the night as they dragged her across the border, one final act of cruelty before abandoning her to die. But death never came for Seraya Hale. And now, 5 years later, as she stands at the edge of the very packlands that cast her out, she wonders if returning is an even greater punishment than exile ever was. I hope by the end of this journey, I'll discover why fate led me back to the place that shattered me, and to the mate who never knew I existed. The recurring nightmare jolts Seraya awake, her body drenched in sweat despite the morning chill. Her fingers instinctively trace the crescent-shaped mark on her collarbone, the mating mark that should have faded years ago after her rejection. Instead, it burns with the same intensity as the day it appeared. Time doesn't heal all wounds. Some it merely teaches to hide. Without warning, the tent flap opens, and Kala, a rogue Omega with fiery red hair, ducks inside. Another nightmare? She asks, setting down a bundle of freshly picked herbs. The scent of lavender and mint fills the small space, momentarily masking the lingering smell of fear. They're getting worse, Seraya admits, her voice still rough from the phantom screams. More detailed. More real. Kala's eyes soften with understanding. The mind remembers what the heart wants to forget. She begins sorting the herbs with practiced fingers. Have you reconsidered the job offer? As if pulled by an invisible thread, Seraya's gaze shifts toward the distant mountains, beyond which lies the Dravik packlands. The very place where, 5 years ago, she had been declared unworthy, impure, unfit to be the mate of their precious heir. Working in their stables. Seraya scoffs, though the sound lacks conviction. I'd be serving the very family that ordered my exile. You'd also have a roof over your head and enough coins to start somewhere new, Kala counters. Somewhere far from here. Seraya rises, her movements fluid despite the lingering ache in her bones, a souvenir from the night she was beaten and abandoned at the border. She pulls her long dark hair into a tight braid, revealing the jagged scar that runs from her ear to collarbone. Not even her accelerated werewolf healing could erase that mark of violence completely. What makes you think they won't recognize me? She asks, though the question is directed more at herself than Kala. The older woman snorts. 5 years change a person, little wolf. The frightened girl they cast out? She's gone. She gestures to Seraya's hardened physique, all lean muscle and battle readiness. In her place stands a warrior who survived the Outlands longer than any exile before her. Deep down, she knows the truth. The Dravik pack had never truly seen her, not even on the night of her rejection. To them, she'd been nothing but a nameless Omega, disposable and forgettable. Even so, the thought of returning makes her stomach twist into knots. Yet where else can she go? The winter approaches, and with it, the rogue hunters who scour the Outlands for vulnerable wolves to enslave or kill. Fine, she relents finally. But I go as Raya, not Seraya. That girl is dead. Before Kala can respond, a commotion erupts outside. The tension breaks as a young wolf, no more than 12, bursts into the tent, blood seeping from a gash across his forehead. Raiders, he gasps, collapsing into Seraya's arms. Coming from the north. Without thinking, Seraya reaches for the silver dagger strapped to her thigh, the one she'd taken from the first hunter who'd tried to claim her as trophy. Her wolf stirs beneath her skin, ready to protect the makeshift pack of outcasts that has become her family. As the silence stretched between them, Kala's eyes meet hers with grim recognition. They've been through this before. Get the others to the caves, Seraya commands, already moving toward the tent opening. I'll hold them off. You can't fight them alone, Kala protests, though her hands automatically begin gathering essentials, medicines, dried meat, water skins. Soraya's lips curl into a predatory smile that never quite reaches her eyes. I'm not the same helpless Omega they once hunted. Now, I'm the one they should fear. The journey to Dravik territory takes 3 days. 3 days of sleeping beneath star-speckled skies, of washing blood, both hers and the raiders, from her skin in icy streams. 3 days of second-guessing her decision with every step that brings her closer to her past. Yet she presses forward, because what awaits behind is worse than whatever lies ahead. As the forest thickens and the air grows heavy with the scent of pine and wolf, Seraya knows she's approaching the border. Her heart hammers a warning rhythm against her ribs, urging her to turn back. Instead, she adjusts the worn leather pack on her shoulder and crosses the invisible line that once marked the end of her world. No alarms sound. No guards descend. The forest continues its quiet symphony, indifferent to her trespass. From there, she follows the narrow hunting trail that winds toward the valley where the royal estate sprawls like a sleeping giant beneath the shadow of ancient mountains. When it finally comes into view, she nearly loses her nerve. The estate is grander than she remembers, stone walls rising majestically against the backdrop of forest and mountain, windows gleaming like watchful eyes in the afternoon sun. A fortress fit for the most powerful alpha bloodline in the region. A bloodline she was deemed unworthy to join. You're here for the stable hand position? The gruff voice startles her from her thoughts. A middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair and the sturdy build of a beta studies her with suspicion. Seraya straightens, forcing her expression into careful neutrality. Yes, she answers, keeping her voice low and deferential, not too strong, not too proud. Just another wolf looking for work. Name's Raya. He grunts, unconvinced. We don't usually take rogues. I'm not a rogue, she lies smoothly. Just a lone wolf looking for pack protection before winter hits. The man, Jaren, as he introduces himself, eyes the scar on her neck but doesn't comment. The work's hard and the pay's modest. Prince Lazien demands perfection in all things, especially the care of his prized stallions. The name hits her like a physical blow. Lazien. The heir who never knew what his family had done in his name. Her mate who never claimed her. In that moment, something inside her shifts. A spark of the old fire that exile and survival had nearly extinguished. Maybe it's not peace she's seeking after all. Without warning, a commotion erupts from the main courtyard, voices raised in greeting, the clatter of hooves on stone. And then, a sense so achingly familiar it makes her wolf whine in recognition. Sandalwood, leather, and mountain air after rain. As if fate demanded it, Seraya turns, her eyes drawn inexorably to the mounted figure entering the courtyard. Broad shoulders, raven black hair, the confident posture of one born to command. Prince Lazien of the Dravik pack. Her mate who had forgotten her. And just like that, everything changes. The mark on her collarbone burns with renewed intensity, a fierce reminder of bonds severed but never broken. She should run. Every instinct screams retreat. Instead, she steps forward into the life she was denied, with one thought burning brighter than fear. They erased her once. They will never forget her again. Their eyes met across the courtyard, his, a flash of royal blue, hers, a haunted amber, and for one breathless moment, the world between them collapsed into a single heartbeat. Then, impossibly, his brow furrowed in confusion. A question formed on his lips. Recognition? No. Curiosity. I hope by the end of this dance of secrets and half-truths, I'll understand why my soul still yearns for someone who doesn't even remember destroying me. The supplies in Seraya's arms crash to the ground as Prince Lazien rounds the corner of the stable corridor, his towering frame blocking her exit. Hay scatters across the polished stone floor, golden strands catching the afternoon light that filters through the high windows. "Watch yourself," he snaps, his voice a low growl that ignites something primal in her chest. As if moved by instinct rather than thought, Seraya drops her gaze, a submissive gesture she hasn't performed since her exile. The wolf in her howls in protest, urging her to meet his stare as an equal, not as the broken omega they tried to make her. With a deep breath, she lifts her chin. "Perhaps you should watch where you're going, Your Highness," she counters, the honorific dripping with barely concealed contempt. The space between them burns with the audacity of her response. No stable hand speaks to the alpha heir this way, certainly not a newcomer with dirt under her fingernails and mystery in her scent. Instead of anger, a flicker of interest crosses his perfect features. "You're new," he states, circling her like a predator assessing prey. "And you have no idea who you're addressing." "I know exactly who you are," Seraya replies, her voice steadier than her pulse. "Prince Lazien Dravik, future alpha of the most powerful pack in the Northern Territories. The man who rejected me without even looking at my face." As the tension stretched between them, his nostrils flare slightly, drinking in her scent. Something passes across his face, confusion, then discomfort, as if trying to grasp a memory that refuses to solidify. "Your name?" he demands. "Raya," she answers, the shortened version of her true identity bitter on her tongue. Without warning, he steps closer, too close, breaching the careful distance she's maintained from every wolf since her exile. The heat radiating from his body envelopes her, and with it comes the intoxicating blend of his scent, pine, leather, and something uniquely his that makes her wolf pace restlessly beneath her skin. "There's something," he begins, then stops abruptly. His jaw tightens. "Clean this mess. Then report to the master trainer. The white stallion needs exercising before sunset." Before she can respond, he turns on his heel and stalks away, leaving her surrounded by scattered hay and the lingering ghost of his presence. Only when he disappears around the corner does Seraya release the breath she's been holding. Her hand rises instinctively to her collarbone, where beneath her high-necked shirt, the mating mark burns like a brand. "He didn't recognize me." The relief and devastation war within her chest. Lazien braces his hands against the marble basin in his private chambers, splashing cold water on his face for the third time. The encounter with the new stable hand, Raya, has left him unsettled in ways he cannot articulate. Something about her eyes. Something about her scent. Like a half-forgotten song playing at the edges of his consciousness. As the sunset paints his chambers in hues of gold and crimson, Lazien dries his face with a soft towel, his thoughts still circling the strange woman who dared speak to him with such defiance. Most omegas can barely maintain eye contact in his presence, yet she had practically challenged him. The moment their eyes locked, something inside him had shifted, a disturbance in the carefully ordered world he inhabited. And when her scent had reached him, wild honey, night blooms, and beneath it all, a curious note of familiarity, his wolf had surged forward, straining against the mental barriers he'd spent years perfecting. Without thinking, he finds himself at the window overlooking the training grounds, where the white stallion, Phantom, circles the perimeter with a rider on his back. Even from this distance, Lazien recognizes the straight spine and confident posture of the new stable hand. Her dark braid whips behind her as she guides the notoriously difficult horse through a series of complex maneuvers. Phantom has thrown every rider who's attempted to mount him. Every rider except Lazien himself. And now her. His lips part in surprise as the stallion responds to her subtle commands, moving with the fluid grace of partnership rather than dominance. It's as if they speak a language known only to them. Impressive, isn't she? The voice of his younger sister, Maya, breaks through his reverie. Jaren says she handled Phantom like she's been riding him for years. Lazien doesn't turn from the window. She's an Omega. So? Maya joins him at the glass, her shoulder brushing against his arm. Not all Omegas are meant for breeding and submission, brother. Some have other strengths. His jaw tightens at the jab. Maya has never approved of the traditional roles their father enforces, roles Lazien is expected to uphold when he becomes alpha. There's something odd about her, he murmurs, more to himself than to Maya. Something familiar. Maya's expression shifts subtly, a flash of something, concern? Fear, before smoothing into neutrality. She's just another drifter looking for work before winter. Nothing special. Yet as the words leave her mouth, Raya guides Phantom into a perfect rear, her body moving in perfect harmony with the powerful beast. The dying sunlight catches her profile, illuminating the sharp line of her jaw, the proud tilt of her chin. Between one heartbeat and the next, a strange image flashes through Lazien's mind, the same face, younger, tear-streaked, beneath a full moon. Then it's gone, leaving only confusion in its wake. I need to check the border patrols, he says abruptly, turning from the window. The rogues have been getting bolder. Maya's hand catches his wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. Leave her be, Lazien, she warns, her voice uncharacteristically serious. Some stones are better left unturned. The intensity in her eyes gives him pause. What aren't you telling me? Nothing you need to know, she replies cryptically, releasing his arm. Just focus on your upcoming trials. Father expects perfection. As she leaves his chambers, Lazien returns his gaze to the training grounds, but Raya and Phantom have already disappeared, leaving only disturbed dust in the practice ring and unsettling questions in his mind. The moon hangs heavy and full above the royal estate as Seraya slips from the servants' quarters, her steps silent on the dewy grass. Sleep eludes her, chased away by the memory of Lazien's piercing blue eyes and the strange flicker of almost recognition that had passed through them. The stables offer solace, the rhythmic breathing of horses, the sweet scent of hay, the blessed absence of wolf politics. Here, she can drop the careful mask she wears, if only for a few precious hours. What followed was unexpected. As she approaches Phantom's stall, she finds it empty, the door slightly ajar. Fear spikes through her, losing the prince's prized stallion on her first day would guarantee dismissal. She tracks the horse's scent to the far meadow beyond the formal gardens, a space where the manicured grounds give way to wild grasses and scattered wildflowers. There, silhouetted against the moonlight, stands Phantom, and beside him, the unmistakable figure of Prince Lazien. Seraya freezes, shrinking into the shadows at the meadow's edge. She should retreat, return to her quarters, pretend she never saw him here, vulnerable and alone. Instead, her feet carry her forward, drawn by the same inexorable force that has haunted her dreams for 5 long years. The moment their eyes locked, Lazien stiffens, his hands stilling on Phantom's neck. You should be sleeping, he says, his voice softer than she's heard it before. As should you, your highness, she replies, stopping a respectful distance away. Silence falls between them, not uncomfortable but charged with unspoken questions. Phantom nickels softly, moving between them as if sensing the tension of forced forgetting. The mate bond pulls still, invisible but undeniable, dragging them both toward a truth neither is prepared to face. He dreamed of her face every night for a week, a woman he'd never met but somehow knew to his bones. Blood trickled from her lips as she whispered his name like a curse. The moon shattered above them. His hands, stained crimson, reached for hers. And then she was gone, leaving nothing but the haunting echo of her voice, "You never even saw me." I hope by the end of these trials, I'll understand why a stranger's eyes haunt me like a crime I don't remember committing. Dawn breaks over the royal estate, painting the training grounds in hues of gold and amber. Lazien arrives early, his restless night driving him from bed before the first servants stir. The dreams leave him disoriented, caught between reality and fragments of memories that cannot possibly be his own. Without warning, hoofbeats thunder across the field. Phantom emerges from the morning mist with Raya astride him, her body moving in perfect rhythm with the massive stallion. Her dark hair streams behind her, unbound and wild in the dawn light. As if pulled by an invisible thread, Lazien steps forward, watching her guide the horse through complex maneuvers that few in his royal guard could execute. There's something about the way she rides, not dominating the beast but partnering with it, communicating through subtle shifts of weight and gentle pressure. Impressive, he calls as she circles back, bringing Phantom to a halt before him. "Where did you learn to ride like that?" A shadow crosses her features. When you live in the Outlands, riding well isn't a luxury, it's survival. The mention of the Outlands, the lawless territories beyond pack boundaries, triggers his curiosity. "You're from the border regions?" "I've been everywhere," she answers evasively, swinging down from the saddle with effortless grace. Her scent washes over him, wild honey and night-blooming flowers, undercut with something sharp and dangerous. "And nowhere." The casual dismissal should irritate him. Instead, each cryptic response only intensifies his fascination. "Race me," he challenges, gesturing toward the stable where his black stallion, Tempest, waits. "To the northern ridge and back." Her eyes narrow, suspicion evident in their amber depths. "And what does the alpha heir gain from racing a stable hand?" "The truth," he replies, the words emerging unbidden. "One question answered honestly if I win." Something flickers across her face, fear, perhaps. Or calculation. "And if I win?" Lazien smiles, slow and deliberate. "The same. One question I must answer truthfully." The air between them charges with unspoken tension as she considers his offer. Finally, she nods, a single sharp movement. "Get your horse, Your Highness. Let's see if you can keep up." Minutes later, they thunder across the open fields, horses moving like extensions of their riders' wills. Lazien pushes Tempest harder than he has in months, yet Raya and Phantom maintain their lead with infuriating consistency. The wind whips his face as they race toward the ridge, tall grass parting like water before them. Ahead, Raya leans low over Phantom's neck, whispering something to the beast that sends them surging forward. For the first time in years, Lazien feels truly alive. Not Prince Lazien, heir to the Dravik throne, bound by duty and protocol. Just a wolf racing through his territory, blood singing with the primal joy of competition. As they reach the northern ridge, she turns to glance back at him, a mistake. The momentary distraction costs her precious seconds. He seizes the opportunity, urging Tempest into a burst of speed that brings them alongside Phantom. The path narrows as they descend, forcing the horses closer. Their legs nearly touch now, and Lazien can see the determination etched into every line of her face. Sweat glistens on her throat, drawing his attention to the high collar of her shirt, the one she wears despite the warmth of the day. The one that hides her mysterious injury. The thought distracts him long enough for Raya to pull ahead once more. By the time they thunder back into the training grounds, she's 3 lengths in front, bringing Phantom to a controlled stop with a triumphant smile that transforms her features from merely beautiful to breathtaking. "It seems I get my question, Your Highness," she announces, slightly breathless from the ride. Lazien dismounts, approaching her with measured steps. Ask, then. As the sun clears the horizon, illuminating her face in golden light, something shifts in her expression, the bravado giving way to vulnerability that pierces him more deeply than it should. "Why did you forget me?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. The question makes no sense, yet it resonates through him like a truth he's always known. Confusion furrows his brow as he searches her face for meaning. "Forget you? We met barely a day ago." Pain flashes across her features, quickly masked. "Of course," she murmurs, turning away. "I misspoke." Before she can retreat, his hand catches her wrist. The contact sends electricity coursing through his arm, his wolf surging forward with such force that his eyes momentarily flash gold. "Ask another question," he demands, voice rough with emotions he doesn't understand. She looks down at his hand on her wrist, then back to his face. "The scar on your chest," she says finally. "How did you get it?" His free hand rises instinctively to the jagged mark beneath his shirt, the mysterious wound that appeared 5 years ago after his 18th birthday. The healers claimed he'd been injured during his alpha trials, but the memories of that night have always been strangely blurred. "I don't remember," he admits, the confession tasting bitter on his tongue. "They say it happened during my trials." "And you believe them?" Her voice carries a challenge that makes his wolf bristle. Lazien narrows his eyes. "That's a second question. You only earned one." A sad smile touches her lips. "Then I suppose I'll have to race you again tomorrow." Without warning, she slips from his grasp and leads Phantom back toward the stables, leaving Lazien standing alone with questions multiplying in his mind. That afternoon, Lazien finds himself in the Royal Archives, a place he's rarely visited despite his position. Dust motes dance in the shafts of sunlight that penetrate the high windows, illuminating shelves of ancient records dating back centuries. "Your Highness," the elderly archivist bows deeply, surprise evident in his rheumy eyes. "How may I serve?" "The exile records," Lazien commands, his tone brooking no argument. "From 5 years ago." A flicker of unease crosses the old wolf's face. "Those records are sealed by your father's order, my prince." "I am the heir," Lazien growls, allowing his alpha presence to fill the room. "And I command you to produce them." The archivist hesitates only briefly before shuffling to a locked cabinet hidden behind a tapestry depicting the first Dravik alpha. The key he produces is worn with age but polished by frequent handling. "As you wish," he murmurs, "though I must inform the High Alpha of this request." "Do what you must," Lazien replies dismissively, already reaching for the leather-bound volume the archivist reluctantly presents. The pages are filled with names and crimes, those deemed unworthy of pack protection and cast out to face the dangers of the Outlands alone. Most exiles don't survive a month beyond pack borders. The knowledge sits uncomfortably in Lazien's chest as he scans the list, searching for, what? A name he doesn't know? A face he's never seen? Hours later, frustration mounting, he slams the book closed. There's nothing here that explains his dreams, nothing that connects to the mysterious stable hand who rides like she was born to the saddle. As he rises to leave, a loose page flutters from between the covers, older and more worn than the others. On it, a single name has been crossed out with such violence that the quill tore through the parchment. The first letter is still visible, S. Below it, a cryptic notation, blood moon rejection. Memory modification authorized by High Alpha. Mate bond severed. Mate bond severed. The words echo in his mind, sending a chill down his spine. Memory modification is forbidden magic, a violation of the most sacred wolf laws. Yet here is evidence of its use, authorized by his father. Without thinking, Lazien tucks the fragment into his jacket, his mind racing with implications. If memories can be altered, what else might have been taken from him? And why does the thought of a severed mate bond fill him with such inexplicable grief? That night, unable to sleep, Lazien roams the estate grounds. His feet carry him instinctively toward the stables, where a light still burns despite the late hour. Through the open door, he glimpses Raya brushing Phantom with long, gentle strokes. Her lips move in what appears to be a one-sided conversation with the horse, who listens with pricked ears and occasional soft whickers. "You should be sleeping," Lazien says, stepping into the golden pool of lantern light. She doesn't startle, doesn't turn. "As should you, Your Highness." "Lazien," he corrects, moving closer. "My name is Lazien." At this, she does turn, surprise evident in her amber eyes. Princes don't typically invite stable hands to use their given names. "Perhaps I'm not a typical prince." The teasing words feel foreign on his tongue. When was the last time he joked with anyone below his station? Her smile is small but genuine. "No," she agrees softly. "You never were." The statement hangs between them, loaded with meanings he can't decipher. Before he can question her, she sets down the brush and moves past him toward the stable door. Without thinking, he reaches for her, catching the high collar of her shirt. The fabric tears slightly, revealing the edge of what can only be a mating mark, crescent-shaped and silvery against her skin. Her hand flies up to cover it, eyes wide with panic. But it's too late. He's seen it. "You're mated," he says, the words emerging as an accusation rather than a question. "No," she answers, backing away. "Not anymore. That's impossible. Everyone knows mate bonds are eternal, unbreakable except by death. Unless your mate is standing right in front of me," she whispers, the words so soft he almost doesn't catch them. His world tilts sideways, certainty crumbling beneath his feet. "What did you say?" Instead of answering, she turns and flees into the night, leaving Lazien with the scent of her fear in his nostrils and a terrible, yawning void opening in his chest. Because in the instant before she ran, as the moonlight caught her face, he'd seen her, truly seen her, for the first time. Not as Raya the stable hand, but as someone else. Someone whose name begins with S. Someone he should never have forgotten. The truth doesn't break with thunder, it shatters in whispers. 3 words, caught on midnight air as Seraya passed the council chamber, the erased girl. 3 words that froze her blood and ignited her fury. 3 words that confirmed what she'd always suspected: her exile wasn't just cruel, it was calculated. And someone in the Dravik pack still remembered exactly who she was. "I hope by the end of this night, I'll know who ordered my soul to be ripped apart, and why they feared me enough to make him forget I ever existed." Seraya presses her back against the cold stone wall outside the council chamber, her heart hammering against her ribs. The heavy oak door stands slightly ajar, voices filtering through the gap like smoke. "The stable hand must go," Elder Morin's gravelly voice insists. She's asking questions about the archives, about the rejected ones. "She's just a servant," another voice counters, Maya, Lazien's sister. "What harm could she possibly?" "She wears a concealment charm," Morin interrupts. "Did you think we wouldn't notice?" "A powerful one, but not powerful enough to hide from those who cast the original spell." "Concealment charm?" Seraya's hand rises instinctively to the simple leather cord around her neck, a parting gift from Kala. "For protection," the old Omega had said. "Some scars are best kept hidden." "My brother is drawn to her," Maya's voice drops lower, urgent. I've seen the way he watches her. The spell is weakening. Spell. The word echoes in Seraya's mind, confirming her darkest suspicions. Not just rejection, but erasure. Not just broken hearts, but broken memories. Then we eliminate the problem. Morin's tone leaves no room for argument. The High Alpha was clear: the heir cannot be allowed to bond with impure blood. The girl was removed once. She can be removed again. Permanently this time, adds a third voice, cold and clinical. No loose ends. As the silence stretched between the speakers, Seraya's breath catches in her throat. They're planning to kill her. Not exile her again, eliminate her completely. Heavy footsteps approach the door. With practiced stealth, Seraya melts into the shadows of an adjacent corridor, her wolf's heightened senses tracking the elders as they exit the chamber and move in opposite directions. Only when their footsteps fade does she allow herself a single, shuddering breath. She needs to run, to flee this place before the sun rises. And yet, something holds her here. Not just the stubborn need for answers, but something deeper. The mate bond, damaged but unbroken, pulses beneath her skin like a second heartbeat. Lazien deserves to know the truth. Even if he hates her for it. The midnight garden stands silent and shrouded in mist as Seraya makes her way toward the royal quarters. Guards patrol the main entrances, but years in the outlands have taught her how to move unseen, how to find the paths others overlook. A trellis of ancient wisteria scales the eastern wall of the palace, providing handholds all the way to a stone balcony on the second floor. She climbs with practiced ease, her muscles remembering skills honed during years of survival. The balcony doors stand ajar, gauzy curtains billowing in the night breeze. Beyond them, in the dimly lit chamber, Lazien paces like a caged predator, his powerful frame tense with unresolved energy. He senses her before he sees her, his head snapping up, nostrils flaring as he catches her scent on the wind. Their eyes lock across the moonlit space, his widening in surprise that shifts quickly to something darker, more dangerous. You have 1 minute, he growls, stalking toward her with measured steps, to explain why you're sneaking into my private chambers in the middle of the night. Despite the threat in his tone, Seraya stands her ground. They're going to kill me. Her blunt words stop him cold, confusion replacing anger. What are you talking about? Your father's counsel, she continues, voice steady despite her racing heart. I overheard them tonight. They're planning to eliminate me because I'm asking too many questions about the past. About what happened 5 years ago. He studies her face, searching for deception. Finding none, his expression hardens further. And what exactly happened 5 years ago that concerns you so deeply? The moment of truth. No turning back. I was rejected, she says, each word deliberate. By you. Lazien recoils as if struck. That's impossible. I would remember. Would you? Seraya steps closer, close enough to see the flecks of silver in his blue eyes. When your memories have been tampered with? When a blood spell was cast to make you forget? His breathing accelerates, the controlled prince giving way to something more primal. You're lying. Then explain this, she challenges, fingers moving to the high collar of her shirt. She unfastens it with deliberate slowness, pulling the fabric aside to reveal the silvery crescent mark on her collarbone. Explain why I bear your mating mark, even after 5 years of rejection. In the quiet that follows, Lazien's gaze fixes on the mark with such intensity it burns. His chest rises and falls rapidly, his control slipping with each breath. Impossible, he whispers, but even as the word leaves his lips, his hand reaches out, drawn to the mark like a compass to north. His fingertips brush the silver crescent, and the world explodes in sensation. The bond, dormant but never dead, roars back to life like a flame touched to gasoline. Seraya gasps, her knees nearly buckling as 5 years of emptiness fill with his presence in her mind, her soul. Emotions cascade through the connection, his confusion, his anger, flashes of memories struggling to surface. Without warning, his other hand tangles in her hair, yanking her head back to expose her throat, not in violence but in desperation, his eyes wild with conflicting instincts. "Who are you?" he demands, his voice a ragged whisper against her skin. "Tell me your real name." Her pulse hammers beneath his touch. "Seraya," she breathes. "Seraya Hale." The name strikes him like physical blow. He releases her suddenly, staggering backward, hands pressed to his temples as if in pain. "Seraya," he repeats, the syllables clumsy on his tongue, as if speaking a language half forgotten. "I knew a Seraya once." Hope flares in her chest, bright and dangerous. "Yes. She was." His brow furrows in concentration, fighting against the magical barriers in his mind. "She was nothing. A mistake." The cruel words, echoes of that night 5 years ago, slice through her renewed hope like a blade. "Those aren't your words," she says fiercely. "Those are words they put in your mouth, your father, the elders. They made you reject me, then erased me completely when they realized the bond had already begun to form." Lazien shakes his head violently, as if trying to dislodge warring truths. "Why would they do such a thing? Tampering with mate bonds is forbidden." "It's because my bloodline threatened them," Seraya interrupts. "I wasn't just an Omega. I was the last descendant of the Hale Pack, the original rulers of these lands before your ancestors conquered them." The words hang in the air between them, heavy with centuries of history neither fully understands. Lazien's eyes widen as pieces begin to fall into place. "The Hales were wiped out generations ago," he says slowly, reciting the history he'd been taught. "Not wiped out," Seraya corrects. "Subjugated. Hidden. Our alpha bloodline diluted over generations until it was nearly lost." Her chin lifts in defiance. "Nearly." Understanding dawns in his expression. "A Hale Dravik union would restore the old bloodline," she finishes. "Would challenge everything your father built." Lazien turns away abruptly, moving to the balcony railing. The night air carries the scent of pine and distant rain as he grips the stone until his knuckles whiten. "You expect me to believe this fantasy?" he asks finally, voice carefully controlled. "That my father, my entire pack, conspired to erase my memories of you?" "I expect nothing from you, Prince Lazien," Seraya replies, the formal title deliberate and biting. "I came to warn you because despite everything, the bond still exists. Because you deserve to know the truth before they silence me permanently." When he turns back to her, his expression has transformed, the confusion giving way to cold fury that promises retribution. "If what you say is true," he says softly, dangerously, "then someone will pay dearly for this violation." Before she can respond, the chamber door bursts open. Royal guards flood the room, weapons drawn. Behind them looms Elder Morin, his lined face twisted in triumph. "Seize her," he commands, pointing a gnarled finger at Seraya. The Omega trespasser attempts to enchant the air. As strong hands grab her arms, Seraya locks eyes with Lazien one final time. "Remember," she whispers fiercely. "Your wolf remembers me, even if you don't." She doesn't struggle as they drag her away, not yet. There will be time for fighting when she's sure which side Lazien stands on. For now, the seeds of doubt have been planted. The truth, like a persistent weed, will find its way to light. The dungeons beneath the Dravik estate are ancient, carved from the same mountain stone as the foundations themselves. Cold seeps through the walls, a living presence that wraps around Seraya's limbs as she paces the narrow confines of her cell. Hours pass, marked only by the gradual shift of shadows cast by the single torch in the corridor beyond her bars. She doesn't waste energy on escape attempts, not yet. The cell is warded with silver and mountain ash, designed specifically to contain werewolves. Instead, she focuses on the bond, on the brief moment when Lazien touched her mark and the connection flared back to life. It remains open now, a thin thread connecting them despite the physical distance. Through it, she senses his turmoil, confusion, rage, betrayal cycling like a storm. He's confronting someone. His father, perhaps? The elders? A commotion in the corridor snaps her attention outward. Raised voices, the clang of metal, the distinctive thump of bodies hitting stone. The torch flickers, then steadies, illuminating a silhouette approaching her cell, broad-shouldered, regal in bearing despite the blood spattered across his shirt. Lazien stands before her, chest heaving, eyes blazing with wolf gold in the darkness. In his hand, a ring of iron keys. "I remember," he says simply, voice raw with emotion. "Not everything. But enough." As the lock turns and the cell door swings open, Seraya stands motionless, hardly daring to believe. "My father confirmed it all," Lazien continues, stepping into the cell. "Not willingly, but under alpha command. The spell, the rejection, the erasing of your existence from our records." His jaw tightens. "They were planning to execute you at dawn. And now?" she asks, heart thundering in her chest. Without warning, Lazien drops to one knee before her, an heir of the most powerful pack in the Northern Territories, kneeling before an exiled Omega. "Now," he says, voice thick with emotion, "I make this right. Beginning with the truth they tried to bury." He reaches for her hand, bringing it to his chest where his own mating mark burns silver against his skin, the perfect match to hers. "Seraya Hale," he pronounces her full name like a vow, "I remember you now. And I will never forget again." Blood magic leaves scars on both the spellcaster and the victim, invisible wounds that never truly heal. As their fingers intertwined in the dungeon's shadows, something ancient awakened between them, a power that made the torches flicker and the very stone beneath their feet tremble. The spell fragments that had kept them apart for 5 years crumbled like dust, revealing a truth more devastating than either could have imagined. They weren't just mates by chance, but by design, their bloodlines destined to merge since the first moon rose over these lands. I hope by the end of this revelation, we'll understand why our union terrified them enough to tear us apart, and what awakens now that we've found each other again. "We need to leave," Lazien urges, his voice low and urgent as he pulls Seraya to her feet. "The guards I subdued won't stay unconscious forever." Yet neither moves, trapped in the gravity of this moment, of fingers interlaced, of breaths synchronized, of a bond humming to life between them like electricity finding its path. "Your father," Seraya begins, her throat tight with emotion. "The council will answer for their crimes," Lazien finishes, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "But right now, our priority is getting you to safety." The corridor beyond stretches dark and silent, lit only by intermittent torches casting long shadows against the ancient stone. Lazien leads the way, moving with the fluid confidence of one born to these halls. Seraya follows, her senses hyper-alert, catching every distant sound, every shift in air current. As they ascend a narrow spiral staircase hidden behind a tapestry depicting the ancient battle between the Dravik and Hale packs, Seraya's fingers brush the woven scene, her ancestors, portrayed as savage beasts beneath the triumphant Dravik warriors. History written by the victors, she murmurs, the bitterness of generations carried in her voice. Lazien pauses, looking back at the tapestry with new eyes. When I reclaim my place as heir, the first thing I'll do is commission new histories. Truthful ones. The fierce determination in his voice sends a shiver down her spine. That's assuming your father doesn't disown you for freeing me. A dangerous smile curves his lips. Let him try. The alpha power doesn't pass solely by his decree, it follows bloodlines and strength. And tonight, he's shown nothing but weakness. They continue upward, emerging finally into a moonlit corridor in the eastern wing of the palace, a section Seraya hasn't seen before, more ancient than the rest, with arched ceilings and walls adorned with faded frescoes. My private quarters, Lazien explains, pushing open a heavy oak door reinforced with iron. No one enters without my explicit permission, not even my father. The spacious chamber beyond features a massive four-poster bed draped in midnight blue, tall windows overlooking the forest, and walls lined with books and weapons, a scholar-warrior's sanctuary. Without warning, exhaustion crashes over Seraya. 5 years of vigilance, of sleeping with one eye open in the outlands, of never truly resting, all of it catches up in a single moment. Her knees buckle. Lazien catches her before she falls, sweeping her into his arms with effortless strength. You're safe now, he murmurs against her hair. Rest. I'll stand guard. Despite every instinct screaming caution, Seraya feels her eyelids grow heavy. The warmth of his arms, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her cheek, the comforting scent of him, pine, leather, and something uniquely his, lulls her toward oblivion. Don't leave, she whispers, already half-claimed by sleep. His lips brush her forehead, the ghost of a kiss. Never again. Morning arrives with pale golden light filtering through the tall windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Seraya wakes slowly, disoriented by the softness beneath her and the absence of constant danger. She finds herself tucked into Lazien's massive bed, while he sits in a chair nearby, head bowed over an ancient leather-bound book. He's changed his blood-stained shirt for a simple black tunic that stretches across his broad shoulders, his dark hair falling across his forehead as he studies the text with intense concentration. As if sensing her gaze, he looks up, blue eyes meeting hers across the space between them. Something unspoken passes between them, acknowledgement, wonder, recognition deeper than conscious memory. How long was I asleep? She asks, voice still husky from rest. Nearly 12 hours, he replies, setting the book aside. You needed it. Seraya sits up, running a hand through her tangled hair. And the council? Your father? In disarray, Lazien's satisfaction is evident. My father is claiming illness and has retreated to his private chambers. The elders are scrambling to damage control, unaware that I've freed you. They'll figure it out soon enough. He shrugs, the gesture casual but the intent behind it deadly serious. Let them. I've spent the night researching our history, he taps the ancient book, and making certain arrangements. Before she can question him further, he rises, crossing to a wooden chest near the window. From it, he withdraws a small leather pouch, returning to sit beside her on the bed, close but not touching, respecting boundaries still uncertain between them. I found this in the archives, he says, tipping the contents of the pouch onto the bedspread between them. A delicate silver chain pools on the dark fabric, supporting a pendant of clear crystal wrapped in intricate silver wirework. Within the crystal, something dark swirls like smoke captured in glass. What is it? Seraya asks, though something in her responds to the object with instinctive recognition. Your memories, Lazien answers softly. Or rather, mine. Of you. Her breath catches. How is that possible? Blood magic doesn't truly erase, he explains, fingers hovering near the pendant without touching it. It merely relocates. The spell they cast required a vessel to hold what was taken from me. The implications send a cold shiver through her. They kept a piece of your soul in a trinket? For 5 years? His expression darkens. One of many crimes they'll answer for. Seraya studies the pendant, mesmerized by the swirling darkness within. Can the memories be restored? Yes, Lazien confirms. But there's a price. Blood magic always demands balance. What was taken through pain can only be restored the same way. Their eyes meet, understanding passing between them. What do we need to do? Instead of answering immediately, Lazien rises and moves to the windows, drawing heavy curtains across them until the room is bathed in soft golden dimness. He lights a single candle on the bedside table, its flame casting shifting shadows across his features. The ritual requires 3 elements, he says, returning to sit facing her on the bed. The vessel, he points to the crystal pendant, blood from both the caster and the subject of the original spell, and... He hesitates, something almost vulnerable flickering across his face. And? Seraya prompts. Physical connection, he finishes. The closer, the more effective the restoration. Heat rises to her cheeks at the implications. How close? A smile tugs at the corner of his mouth, not mocking, but self-deprecating. Not what you're thinking. Though I wouldn't object. Despite everything, Seraya finds herself smiling back. So modest, Your Highness. His expression sobers. The bond between us already provides most of the connection we need. But the ritual also requires. He takes a deep breath. A renewal of the mating bite. The air between them thickens with tension. Mating bites are sacred, intimate, an act of complete vulnerability and trust between wolves. For her mark to have formed 5 years ago, Lazien must have bitten her during that brief, forgotten encounter. But for her to have retained it despite his rejection speaks to something extraordinary about their bond. You would let me bite you again? She asks, voice barely above a whisper. After everything? His eyes hold hers, steady and certain. I would choose it, knowing what I know now. The naked honesty in his voice steals her breath. This powerful alpha heir, who could have any wolf in the territory, looking at her, exiled, scarred, deemed unworthy, with such certainty. Before she can respond, a sharp knock at the door breaks the moment. Lazien! Maya's urgent voice calls from the corridor. Open up! They know she's missing, they're searching the entire estate. Lazien moves swiftly to the door, opening it just enough to allow his sister to slip inside. Maya's eyes widen when she spots Seraya on the bed, recognition and shock warring in her expression. You remember, she breathes, looking between them. Not everything, Lazien replies. But enough to know what they did was unforgivable. Maya paces the room, nervous energy radiating from her slender frame. You don't understand, it's worse than you know. Father has summoned the Northern Alpha Alliance. He's claiming she gestures towards Seraya, has bewitched you. That her bloodline carries corruption that threatens all packs. Convenient lie, Seraya remarks bitterly. When the truth is they fear what our union represents. Maya stops pacing, turning to face them fully. It's not just fear of political upheaval, she says slowly, as if choosing her words with extreme care. It's fear of prophecy. The word hangs in the air between them, laden with meaning none fully comprehend. What prophecy? Lazien demands. Maya glances toward the door, then lowers her voice. When the Hale and Dravik blood unite under a blood moon, the old powers return. The balance shifts. She swallows hard. That's why they were so desperate to keep you apart. Not just to maintain political control, but because they fear what your children might become. As the silence stretched between them, Seraya's mind races with implications. Not just political pawns, then. Something more. Something that terrified the most powerful wolves in the territory enough to resort to forbidden magic. We need to complete the ritual, Lazien says finally, decision made. Now, before they find us. Maya's eyes widen as she spots the crystal pendant on the bed. Where did you get that? The archives, Lazien answers simply. Understanding dawns in Maya's expression. You'll need protection while you perform the ritual. It will leave you both vulnerable. Lazien nods, grateful for his sister's unwavering support. Can you buy us time? A slow smile spreads across Maya's face, mischievous and fierce. I'll do better than that. I'll create a diversion they won't soon forget. With that promise, she slips back into the corridor, leaving Lazien and Seraya alone once more with the weight of revelation heavy between them. Are you sure about this? Seraya asks quietly. Once you remember everything, there's no going back. Lazien moves to the bed, taking her hands in his. I've lived 5 years with a hole in my soul I couldn't explain, he says, voice rough with emotion. Even if we never met, I would choose truth over comforting lies. Their fingers intertwine, and with their free hands, they reach for the crystal pendant together. The moment their skin makes contact with the enchanted vessel, the swirling darkness within begins to pulse like a heartbeat. Blood to blood, Lazien murmurs, using a claw to make a small cut on his palm. Memory to memory. Seraya mirrors his action, their blood mingling as they clasp hands around the crystal, which grows warm between their palms. The pendant shatters, releasing the captive darkness. It swirls around them like living smoke, drawn to Lazien, seeping into his skin, his eyes, his very breath. He gasps, back arching as 5 years of stolen memories flood back in a torrent, their first meeting at the spring festival, secret rendezvous beneath the silver moon, the instant recognition of their wolves when they scented each other as mates, the joy that had blazed between them, bright and perfect. And then the horror, his father's fury, the elder's intervention, the blood spell forced upon him as he fought against their restraints, Seraya dragged away screaming his name while magic burned through his mind, erasing her completely. When the darkness finally dissipates, Lazien's eyes open, no longer confused or searching, but filled with complete recognition. And something else. Something fierce and protective and hungry. Seraya, he whispers, her name a prayer on his lips. My mate. My heart. I remember everything. Without hesitation, he pulls her into his arms, burying his face in the curve of her neck where the mating mark pulses with renewed heat. Her arms wrap around him instinctively, fingers threading through his hair as 5 years of longing converge in this single moment of reconnection. Bite me, she whispers against his ear. Complete the bond. Make it something they can never break again. His lips brush against her mark, sending shivers of anticipation down her spine. Are you certain? This will bind us forever, beyond any magic they might wield against us. Seraya pulls back just enough to meet his gaze, years of pain and longing and hope reflected in her amber eyes. I was always yours, she says simply. Even when you forgot me. His answering smile is radiant with love and fierce possession. As he lowers his mouth to her mark once more, the door to his chambers bursts open. Silhouetted against the corridor light stands a group of unfamiliar wolves, their eyes glowing with predatory intensity, their scents marking them as neither Dravik nor allies. The Blood Moon Princess, the leader announces, his accent strange to their ears. We've found her at last. Before either can react, a dart whistles through the air, striking Seraya in the shoulder. As darkness claims her consciousness, the last thing she sees is Lazien lunging toward their attackers, his roar of rage shaking the very foundations of the ancient castle. They say a wolf who loses his mate goes feral, mind consumed by rage, sanity surrendered to primal instinct, humanity sacrificed to the beast within. What they don't say is how it feels, like having your soul ripped out while your heart still beats, like drowning in open air, like existing as nothing but raw nerve and exposed bone. Lazien had lost her twice now, once to magic, once to abduction, and something fundamental had broken inside him. The prince was gone. Only the wolf remained. And it would tear apart mountains to reclaim what belonged to it. I hope by the end of this hunt, there will still be enough of me left to recognize her when I find her, and enough mercy in my heart not to become the monster they always feared I would be. Blood drips from Lazien's claws, spattering against marble floors as he stalks through the castle corridors. Guards scramble out of his path, pressing themselves against walls, eyes averted from the feral prince whose skin seems barely able to contain the wolf beneath. His sister Maya runs to keep pace, her face etched with worry. Lazien, stop. Think. You can't track her if you don't know who took her. He doesn't slow, doesn't acknowledge her words. His focus narrows to a single point, follow the scent trail, find his mate, destroy anything in his path. These weren't father's men, Maya persists, grabbing his arm despite the danger. Listen to me. The markings on their clothing, I've seen them before in the ancient texts. They're from the eastern territories, beyond the mountain wall. This information penetrates the red haze of his rage. Lazien stops abruptly, turning to his sister with gold-flecked eyes that pulse between human cognition and wolf instinct. Why would eastern wolves cross the mountain wall to abduct Seraya? He manages, each word forced through clenched teeth. The Blood Moon Princess, Maya whispers, glancing around to ensure they're not overheard. That's what they called her. There's more to this prophecy than father revealed. Without warning, Lazien grabs Maya by the shoulders, not roughly but with desperate urgency. Tell me everything. Now. As the tension stretched between siblings, Maya's expression softens with compassion. I only know fragments. When Hale and Dravik blood unite under a blood moon, old powers return. She takes a steadying breath. The texts speak of a princess born from rival bloodlines who carries the essence of the first wolf, the original shapeshifter from whom all werewolves descend. Seraya isn't pregnant, Lazien growls, confusion momentarily superseding rage. No, Maya agrees. But her bloodline was prophesied to merge with yours. The Eastern Pacts believe any child of your union would fulfill the prophecy, a wolf of unimaginable power who could unite all territories under a single rule. Understanding dawns in Lazien's eyes. They didn't take her to harm her. They took her to control her, to ensure they're allied with this prophesied ruler. Or to prevent the prophecy entirely, Maya adds grimly. The implication sends fresh fury coursing through Lazien's veins, his partial shift advancing further, fangs lengthening, muscles coiling with supernatural power. Where would they take her? He demands, already moving toward the castle's main entrance. The ruins of the ancient temple, Maya calls after him. East of the Silver Lake. It's the only place where blood magic can be performed during a lunar eclipse. Lazien freezes, turning back with dawning horror. Lunar eclipse? Maya nods solemnly. Tonight. That's why they struck now. It's their only chance to bind her powers permanently. Without another word, Lazien bolts through the massive doors and into the courtyard beyond. Guards scramble to saddle Tempest, responding to the prince's unspoken command communicated through pure alpha presence. As the massive black stallion is brought forward, Maya appears beside her brother once more, pressing something into his hand, a dagger with runes etched into its silver blade. This can break blood spells, she explains quickly. Stolen from father's private vault years ago. I've been waiting for the right moment to use it. Lazien's fingers close around the hilt, a flicker of humanity returning to his feral gaze. If I don't return. You will, Maya interrupts fiercely. With your mate beside you. Now go. The abandoned temple rises from the mist-shrouded shores of Silver Lake like the skeleton of a forgotten god, ancient stone columns reaching toward the darkening sky, crumbling walls covered in moss and memory. As dusk approaches, the first stars appear above the ruined sanctuary where eastern wolves prepare for the eclipse ritual. Deep within the temple's heart, in a chamber untouched by sunlight for centuries, Seraya awakens on a stone altar. Silver chains bind her wrists and ankles, the metal burning against her skin, neutralizing her wolf's strength. The princess awakens, a voice observes from the shadows. A tall figure emerges, an Eastern alpha with silver-streaked dark hair and eyes like polished amber. Despite his apparent age, power radiates from him in palpable waves. I am Vaelran, he introduces himself with a slight bow. High Seer of the Eastern Alliance. Kidnapper and coward, Seraya counters, testing her restraints despite the pain. What do you want from me? Vaelran circles the altar with measured steps. Want? Nothing personal, princess. We merely ensure the balance of power remains, distributed. I'm no princess, Seraya spits. Just an exiled Omega your prophecies have mistaken for someone important. A cold smile curves Valorant's lips. Your ignorance is not surprising. The Draviks have worked diligently to keep you in the dark about your true heritage. He reaches out, brushing a finger along her cheekbone in a gesture both intimate and threatening. Your mother wasn't just any Hale. She was the last pure-blooded descendant of the original Moonborn line. Confusion furrows Seraya's brow. My mother died when I was an infant. She was nobody special. Is that what they told you? Valorant's voice drips with mock sympathy. Your mother was executed by the Dravik Alpha, your mate's father, because she threatened his reign simply by existing. The revelation hits Seraya like a physical blow. You're lying. Am I? Vaelran withdraws a small leather pouch from his robes, sprinkling its contents, a mixture of herbs and crystalline powder, around the altar in a complex pattern. Ask yourself why the Draviks were so desperate to prevent your union with the heir. Not just political machinations, but existential fear. Outside, thunder rumbles as storm clouds gather above the temple. The air grows heavy with impending rain and the metallic taste of powerful magic. The eclipse begins in 1 hour, Vaelran continues, his attention now focused on preparation. When the moon's light is fully obscured, we will bind your dormant powers permanently. You will live, comfortably, even, but the prophecy will remain unfulfilled. And if I fight you? Seraya challenges, refusing to show fear despite the dread pulling in her stomach. Valorant's smile doesn't reach his eyes. Blood magic doesn't require your cooperation, princess. Only your blood. Miles away, Lazien rides Tempest at a punishing pace through the gathering darkness. The stallion's hooves thunder across the terrain, eating up distance with supernatural speed born of its rider's desperate urgency. The partially formed bond between him and Seraya pulses like a compass in his chest, drawing him eastward with increasing intensity. Through it, he senses her fear, her determination, her pain. When they reach the dense forests surrounding Silver Lake, Lazien abandons the horse, continuing on foot where the ancient trees grow too closely for mounted travel. The wolf within him takes greater control with each step, senses sharpening, muscles coiling with predatory power, humanity receding beneath the primal need to reclaim his mate. The storm breaks overhead, rain lashing through the canopy as lightning splits the sky. Ahead, through curtains of water, the ruined temple glows with unnatural light, blood magic already gathering for the ritual. Lazien pauses at the forest's edge, assessing. Guards patrol the temple perimeter, at least a dozen eastern wolves, all armed, all vigilant. Behind them, the moon begins its slide into eclipse, a dark shadow creeping across its silver face. Time is running out. What followed was pure instinct, the wolf taking control completely. Lazien surrenders to it willingly, embracing the full shift that tears through his body with exquisite agony. Where the prince stood, a massive black wolf now crouches, larger than any normal wolf has right to be, eyes burning with sapphire fire. The alpha heir of the Dravik line lets loose a howl that shakes the very foundations of the ancient temple, a declaration of war, a promise of retribution, a call to his mate. The guards turn as one toward the sound, weapons raised, expressions tight with fear. They never stand a chance. Within the ritual chamber, Seraya's heart leaps at the distant howl that penetrates even the thick stone walls. She knows that voice, that soul-deep call that speaks directly to her wolf. Lazien has found her. Valoran's eyes narrow as he looks toward the sound. It seems your mate objects to our hospitality, he remarks dryly, though tension lines his features. No matter. The ritual is nearly prepared. He draws a ceremonial dagger across his palm, allowing blood to drip into a stone basin already filled with swirling liquids. Your mate cannot overcome a dozen elite guards, Valeran continues, trying to project confidence. Not even an alpha heir in blood rage. Seraya's smile is sharp with sudden hope. You don't know my mate. As if summoned by her words, screams erupt from the temple entrance, sounds of combat, of terror, of flesh rending beneath powerful jaws. Valoran's composure cracks slightly as he glances toward the chamber's sealed doors. Accelerate the ritual, he commands the acolytes who hover nearby. We cannot wait for the full eclipse. As they rush to obey, mixing potions and chanting in an ancient tongue, Seraya closes her eyes, focusing inward on the bond that connects her to Lazien. Though incomplete, it pulses with increasing strength as he draws nearer. I'm here, she projects through it with all her concentration. Inner chamber. Silver chains. Blood ritual. Whether he receives her message, she cannot know. But the bond flares in response, warm and fierce and determined. The chamber doors shake violently, dust raining from ancient hinges as something massive slams against them from the other side. Valeran abandons preparation, drawing a silver-bladed sword as he moves to stand between the doors and the altar. Even if he breaks through, the Eastern Alpha warns, he'll be too late. The binding spell is already in motion. True to his words, the mixture in the basin begins to glow with eerie blue light. One of the acolytes approaches Seraya with a ceremonial cup filled with the potion, while another positions the ritual dagger at her throat. Once you drink, Valeran explains, the dagger will take just enough blood to seal the spell. Your powers will remain dormant forever, and the prophecy dies with them. The doors splinter inward with an explosive crash. Through the debris stalks not a wolf, but Lazien in his human form, clothes torn, body streaked with blood not his own, eyes blazing with primal fury. "Get away from her," he commands, his voice resonating with alpha timbre that makes the very air vibrate. The acolyte with the cup hesitates, looking to Veilran for guidance. It's all the opening Lazien needs. He launches forward with inhuman speed, knocking the cup away with one hand while the other drives Maya's enchanted dagger into the ceremonial basin. The reaction is instantaneous and catastrophic. The mixture explodes in a blinding flash of blue-white light, sending everyone in the chamber flying backward against the stone walls. In the chaos that follows, Seraya feels her silver chains shatter, not from physical force but from magical backlash as the blood spell collapses in on itself. Veilran recovers first, lunging towards Seraya with his sword raised. "If we cannot bind you, we will end you," he roars, desperation replacing calculation. What happens next occurs in heartbeats yet seems to stretch into eternity. Seraya rolls from the altar, still weak from the silver but driven by survival instinct. Lazien throws himself between her and Valoran's descending blade. Steel meets flesh with a terrible sound. Blood, Lazien's blood, splatters across the ancient stones. As the silence roared through the chamber, Seraya's world narrows to a single point of horror, Lazien collapsing to his knees, Valoran's sword protruding from his shoulder, mere inches from his heart. "No!" The scream tears from her throat, primal and raw. Something breaks loose inside her, a power she never knew existed, a birthright long suppressed. The moonlight streaming through the temple's broken ceiling, still partially eclipsed, seems to gather around her like a living thing. Her eyes shift not to wolf gold but to pure, luminous silver. The air crackles with energy as Seraya rises from the floor, her feet hovering inches above the stone. The Moonborn rises, Veilran whispers, awe and terror warring in his voice as he backs away. Seraya doesn't hear him. Her entire being focuses on Lazien, on his labored breathing, on the blood pooling beneath him as he struggles to remain conscious. She moves to him with liquid grace, kneeling beside his wounded form. Without hesitation, she pulls the sword from his flesh, casting it aside with a clatter. Her glowing hands press against the wound, silver light seeping between her fingers into his torn flesh. "Stay with me," she pleads, voice echoing strangely in the charged air. "Don't you dare leave me when I've only just found you again." Lazien's eyes flutter open, focusing on her transformed countenance with wonder. "You're glowing," he observes weakly, a hint of his usual dry humor surfacing despite the pain. "Apparently, I'm a princess," she replies, a tear sliding down her cheek only to transform into liquid silver before it falls. With magical powers nobody bothered to mention. The wound beneath her hands begins to close, flesh knitting together with supernatural speed. As Lazien's strength returns, he reaches up to touch her face, fingers trembling with emotion rather than weakness. "I would have followed you into death," he whispers fiercely. Her silver eyes burn with matching intensity. "And I would have brought you back." The eclipse reaches completion overhead, the moon fully darkened for a breathless moment before light begins to return to its edge. As the first silver ray touches Seraya's skin, the glow surrounding her intensifies to blinding brilliance. Veilran and his remaining acolytes shield their eyes, cowering against the chamber walls. "The prophecy," the Eastern Alpha gasps. "It wasn't about your child. It was about you. You are the Blood Moon Princess, the one who will unite the packs." As the light finally recedes, Seraya remains transformed, not in appearance, but in essence. Something ancient and powerful now resides alongside her familiar spirit, integrated yet distinct. She rises, helping Lazien to his feet. Together, they face Veilran and his defeated followers. "The prophecy is mine to fulfill or reject," Seraya declares, her voice carrying the weight of newfound power. "Not yours to manipulate or destroy." Lazien stands tall beside her, their fingers intertwined, strength flowing between them through the bond that grows stronger with each passing moment. You have a choice, he addresses Valeran with the authority of a true alpha. Pledge loyalty to the Blood Moon Princess, or face execution for your crimes against her. Valeran studies them both for a long moment, the heir of the most powerful Western pack and the last descendant of the Moonborn line, standing united despite every effort to keep them apart. With calculated grace, he sinks to one knee, head bowed in submission. The Eastern Alliance recognizes the Blood Moon Princess, he pronounces formally. May your reign bring balance to what has long been divided. As the rest of the Eastern Wolves follow their leader in kneeling, Seraya turns to Lazien, uncertainty flickering beneath her newfound power. I don't know how to be a princess, she whispers. I've been running and surviving for so long, I don't know how to lead. Lazien's hand cups her cheek, his thumb brushing away another silvery tear. Then we'll learn together, he promises. After all, I was raised to be an heir, not the mate of a prophesied ruler. A smile breaks across her face, radiant with hope and love hard-won. Partners, then? In all things? In all things, he agrees, lowering his lips to hers in a kiss that seals both promise and prophecy. The bond between them flares to completion, two souls merging into something greater than either alone could be. And in that sacred union, the future of all packs begins to take shape, not through conquest or coercion, but through love that defied magic, memory, and fate itself. Power leaves an aftertaste, metallic and sweet, intoxicating and terrible. As they journeyed back to the Dravik lands, Seraya felt it humming beneath her skin like lightning seeking ground, ancient magic that had slumbered in her bloodline for generations now fully awakened and hungry for expression. The Eastern Wolves followed 10 paces behind, former enemies transformed to honor guard by a single act of mercy. But the true transformation was within her mate, the proud alpha heir who now walked half a step behind her, not in submission but in reverence, his eyes never leaving her as if she might dissolve into moonlight if he looked away. I hope by the end of this confrontation, they will understand that we come not for revenge, but for revolution, not to destroy the old ways, but to forge something entirely new from the ashes of what they tried to bury. Dawn breaks over the Dravik estate as Seraya and Lazien crest the final hill, the Eastern Wolves fanning out behind them in disciplined formation. Below, the castle stirs with early activity, servants beginning their daily routines, guards changing shifts, smoke rising from kitchen chimneys. No alarms sound. No defenders rush to the walls. They have no idea what approaches. Are you ready for this? Lazien asks, his hand finding hers as they pause at the forest's edge. Seraya looks down at herself, still dressed in the torn clothes from her captivity, now wrapped in Lazien's cloak. The silver glow has receded from her eyes, but the power remains, a constant presence just beneath her skin. No, she admits with a small smile. But we've come too far to turn back now. They proceed down the hill with measured steps, neither rushing nor hesitating. As they approach the main gates, the guards straighten, recognizing their prince. Then confusion clouds their features as they register his companion and the foreign wolves at their backs. Prince Lazien, one guard begins uncertainly, the High Alpha has ordered. I know what he's ordered, Lazien interrupts, his voice carrying the unmistakable authority of his bloodline. And I'm countermanding it. Open the gates. The guards exchange nervous glances, caught between conflicting loyalties. Perhaps I didn't make myself clear, Lazien continues, allowing his eyes to shift to Wolfgold. Open the gates. Without waiting for compliance, he steps forward and places his hands on the massive iron bars. The metal groans beneath his touch, ancient hinges protesting as he exerts his strength. Seraya moves to his side, adding her newfound power to his. Together, they push the gates open as if they weighed nothing at all. The courtyard beyond falls silent as servants and warriors alike freeze at the sight of their returning prince, the exiled Omega now radiating power beside him, and the eastern wolves who should be enemies standing at their backs. "Find my father," Lazien commands a nearby guard who stands gaping. "Tell him his son has returned and requests his presence in the Great Hall." Immediately. As the guard scurries away, Lazien offers his arm to Seraya with formal courtesy. "Shall we?" She slips her hand into the crook of his elbow, chin lifting with newfound confidence. "Lead the way." "For now." They cross the courtyard with unhurried grace, the morning sunlight catching in Seraya's dark hair, illuminating the silver strands that weren't there before the eclipse ritual. Whispers follow in their wake, rumors already taking shape about the transformed Omega who walks like royalty. The Great Hall stands empty save for a few servants polishing silver candelabras for the evening meal. They scatter at Lazien's approach, backing away with downcast eyes and hurried bows. "Positions," Lazien murmurs to the eastern wolves, who immediately take up strategic locations around the hall, flanking doors, positioning near windows, creating a protective perimeter. Seraya moves to the center of the room, her gaze drawn to the massive tapestry depicting the subjugation of the Hale pack by Dravik conquerors. In the stylized scene, Dravik wolves stand triumphant over cowering enemies, the moon full and silver above them. "They got it wrong," she observes, studying the ancient artwork. "The histories say it was cloudy that night. No moon witnessed the fall of my ancestors." Lazien joins her, his hand finding the small of her back in a gesture both protective and grounding. "We'll commission new tapestries. Truthful ones." "That won't be necessary," a cold voice announces from the main entrance. "As no Hale will ever command in these halls again." High Alpha Lazien Dravik strides into the Great Hall, flanked by elite guards and council elders. His resemblance to Lazien is striking, the same commanding presence, the same regal features, yet where Lazien's eyes hold warmth beneath their authority, his father's remain cold as winter ice. "Father," Lazien acknowledges without bowing. Voron's gaze shifts to Seraya, contempt barely masked beneath a veneer of civility. "I see you've brought back your pet. And eastern wolves as well?" His lip curls. "Have you completely lost your mind, or merely your loyalty?" "I've lost neither," Lazien replies evenly. "I've simply found something greater than both." The High Alpha's eyes narrow dangerously. Guards, seize the girl and the eastern intruders. My son is clearly under some enchantment. Not a single guard moves. As the silence stretched between father and son, understanding dawns in Voron's eyes. You've turned my own warriors against me? They were never yours to command through fear, Lazien counters. A true alpha leads through respect, not terror. Voron's composure cracks, rage bleeding through his controlled facade. You dare lecture me on leadership? You, who would throw away centuries of Dravik rule for a common Omega. Not common, Seraya interjects, stepping forward. And not just Omega. Without warning, she allows her power to surface, silver light blooming around her like a physical manifestation of moonlight. The effect ripples through the hall, guards dropping to their knees, elders backing away in superstitious fear, even Voron himself taking an involuntary step backwards. The Moonborn, Elder Morin whispers, recognition and horror warring in his aged face. The prophecy. The very one you tried to prevent, Lazien confirms, moving to stand beside Seraya rather than in front of her. By erasing memories, by exiling my mate, by violating the most sacred laws of our kind. With every heartbeat, more wolves filter into the Great Hall, drawn by the commotion, by rumors spreading through the castle like wildfire. Maya appears near the back, her expression fierce with pride as she watches her brother stand united with his mate. "Father," Lazien continues, his voice carrying to every corner of the now crowded hall, "you are charged with crimes against the pack, against the sacred mate bond, and against the bloodline you claim to protect." "How dare you!" Vorin roars, his partial shift beginning, claws extending, fangs lengthening as rage overcomes calculation. "I am High Alpha. My word is law." "Not anymore," Lazien responds, his own voice deepening with authority but remaining human, controlled where his father gives into base instinct. "By pack law, when a High Alpha commits crimes against his own blood, his heir may challenge for immediate succession." Murmurs ripple through the assembled wolves. Challenges traditionally occur only after a High Alpha's natural death or voluntary abdication. Yet the law Lazien invokes is ancient and valid, if rarely used. "You would fight your own father?" Vorin snarls, already stripping off his ceremonial jacket, preparing for combat. Lazien's smile holds no humor. "No, father. I will not fight you." Confusion replaces rage in Vorin's expression. "Then you forfeit your claim." "I make no claim," Lazien replies calmly. "I renounce it entirely." Gasps echo through the hall. No Dravik heir has ever willingly surrendered their birthright. "Then you are nothing," Vorin spits. "No longer my son, no longer pack." "Wrong again," Lazien counters, turning to face the assembled wolves rather than his father. "I am more than heir, more than prince. I am mate to the Blood Moon Princess, the true ruler prophesied to unite the divided packs." With deliberate ceremony, he kneels before Seraya, head bowed in a gesture that sends shockwaves through the hall. The alpha heir of the most powerful Western pack, kneeling before a woman once exiled as unworthy. "My loyalty is to Seraya Hale, last descendant of the Moonborn line," he declares, voice ringing with conviction. "My strength is hers to command. My life is hers to guide." One by one, other wolves begin to kneel, first Maya, then the royal guards, then servants and warriors alike, a wave of submission spreading through the hall until only Vorin and his most loyal elders remain standing. "This is madness," the High Alpha hisses, looking around frantically as his support crumbles. "She is nothing but a—" "Careful, father," Lazien interrupts, rising to his feet once more. "The next word from your mouth determines whether you leave this hall in chains or in pieces." The threat hangs in the air, all the more powerful for the matter-of-fact way it's delivered. Valran, the Eastern Alpha who had once sought to bind Seraya's power, steps forward from his position near the wall. The Eastern Alliance recognizes the Blood Moon Princess and her chosen mate as rightful rulers of all territories. Without breaking eye contact with Vorin, Seraya speaks, her voice carrying the weight of newfound authority. "We don't seek to rule through fear or force. That era ends today." She extends her hand toward Vorin, not in submission, but in offering. "You have a choice, as all will have under our leadership. Submit and help build this new world, or leave and find your own path." The gesture of mercy, unexpected after such betrayal, catches the former Alpha off guard. He stares at her outstretched hand with suspicion, searching for the trap. "Why would you offer me anything but execution?" he asks finally, genuine confusion in his voice. Seraya's expression softens slightly. "Because ruling through revenge only creates more enemies. And because your son, my mate, still remembers a father worthy of respect, beneath the tyrant you've become." The words strike true, something vulnerable flickering across Vorin's face, a glimpse of the wolf he might have been before power corrupted him. His shoulders slump, defeat replacing defiance. "And if I refuse?" "Then you will be escorted beyond our borders," Lazien answers, no threat in his tone, merely certainty. free to go wherever you choose, but never to return. For a moment, the outcome hangs in balance. Then, with deliberate slowness, Vorin sinks to one knee, head bowed not in surrender, but in acknowledgement. The Dravik line recognizes the Blood Moon Princess, he pronounces formally, though bitterness edges each word. Victory secured, Seraya turns to address the assembled wolves, her voice clear and unwavering. Rise, all of you. In our pack, no one kneels in fear or submission. We stand together as equals, each with voice and purpose. Her gaze sweeps the hall, meeting eyes that watch her with mixture of awe and uncertainty. The divisions between Omega, Beta, Alpha, between Dravik, Hale, Eastern, Western, those walls come down today. As the wolves rise, murmuring among themselves, Lazien steps to Seraya's side, his hand finding hers, fingers intertwining in silent unity. There will be resistance, he murmurs for her ears alone. Change never comes easily. Her smile holds both determination and hope. Then we face it together. As we were always meant to. Throughout the hall, wolves watch this exchange, the tender look between rulers, the equal standing, the shared strength. In that moment, something shifts in the collective consciousness of the pack. This is not conquest or subjugation. This is something entirely new. The Blood Moon Princess and her chosen alpha will address the full pack at moonrise, Maya announces, stepping forward to take charge of practicalities. All are welcome to attend, regardless of rank or bloodline. As the crowd begins to disperse, their expressions ranging from excitement to trepidation, Seraya and Lazien remain in the center of the great hall, their joined hands a symbol of unity more powerful than any crown or throne. Are you ready for this? Lazien asks, echoing his earlier question with new meaning. Seraya looks around the hall, at the tapestries that will be replaced, at the elders being led away in restraints, at Maya organizing the evening's historic gathering, at Vorin retreating with dignity intact if pride wounded. No, she admits with a smile that outshines the silver in her eyes. But we'll figure it out together. Their lips meet in a kiss that seals both promise and prophecy, not as princess and consort, not as alpha and omega, but as equals united by a bond that transcended rejection, exile, and forgotten memories to forge something stronger than fate itself. Legends speak of mates whose bonds transcend ordinary connection, souls not merely matched but forged in the same celestial fire, separated only to find each other lifetime after lifetime across the tapestry of existence. In the silver glow of the full moon, as Seraya stood at the edge of the sacred pool with her mate beside her, she finally understood the truth that had eluded her during those years of exile and pain. Rejection hadn't been the end of her story, it had been the catalyst for a transformation greater than either of them could have imagined alone. I hope by the end of our days, when we look back on this journey, we remember not the scars but the healing, not the separation but the finding, not what was taken but what was ultimately given, the chance to rewrite not just our story, but the story of all wolves to come. 1 year after the night that changed everything, the territories once divided now stand united under the leadership of the Blood Moon Princess and her chosen mate. The formerly imposing Dravik estate has transformed, walls torn down, gardens open to all, the great hall now a council chamber where representatives from every pack gather as equals. Dawn breaks over the eastern mountains as Seraya walks alone through the wild meadow beyond the formal grounds. Barefoot, dressed in a simple white shift, her dark hair now streaked with permanent silver, she moves with the quiet confidence of a woman who has found her place in the world. The meadow flowers part beneath her steps, blooming more vibrantly in her wake, one of the many subtle manifestations of the moonborn magic that flows through her veins. Small woodland creatures watch her passage without fear, sensing the harmony between her dual natures, wolf and woman, power and compassion, ruler and healer. As the silence stretched across the peaceful morning, Seraya finds herself drawn to an ancient oak at the meadow's edge, the boundary marker between what was once Dravik land and the neutral territories beyond. Beneath its sprawling branches, a figure waits, tall and powerful yet utterly at ease. Lazien looks up at her approach, his face transforming with a smile that still makes her heart skip a beat. He's changed this past year, the rigid formality of the alpha heir replaced by something more authentic, more alive. He wears simple clothes now, leather and linen rather than the royal finery of his former station. Yet somehow, he looks more regal than ever. "You're up early," he remarks, reaching for her hand as she draws near. "The ceremony is today," she replies, fingers intertwining with his. "I couldn't sleep." His thumb traces circles on her palm, a gesture both soothing and intimate. "Having second thoughts about giving up absolute power?" he teases. Seraya laughs, the sound bright in the morning air. "Hardly. I've been counting the days until we can implement the council system." "As have I," he agrees, pulling her closer until she stands within the circle of his arms. "Though I suspect for different reasons." His gaze drops meaningfully to her abdomen, still flat but housing their carefully guarded secret. 3 months along, their child grows protected by both its parents' fierce love and the unprecedented privacy they've insisted upon for this most personal of journeys. "Just think," Seraya murmurs, leaning into his solid warmth, "a child who will never know the old divisions. Never be labeled Alpha or Omega, never be judged by bloodline alone." Lazien's hand splays protectively over her stomach, wonder evident in his touch. "Our child will know only that they are loved, that they are free to choose their own path." With that promise hanging in the air between them, Lazien captures her lips in a kiss that still carries the same fire as their first, tender yet passionate, a perfect balance of restraint and abandon. As they part, breathless, a voice calls from the direction of the main grounds. Maya appears at the meadow's edge, elegant in her ceremonial robes as the newly appointed head of council. "There you are," she exclaims, making her way toward them. "The delegates are arriving." The Northern Alliance representatives brought gifts again. She rolls her eyes good-naturedly. "As if jewelry and furs will win them special consideration." "At least they're trying," Seraya observes with amusement. The Southern packs still send their oldest members, hoping age will be mistaken for wisdom. Maya reaches them, affection evident in her expression as she looks between her brother and the woman who has become both sister and leader. "Are you ready? Once the council is installed, you two will finally have what you've been plotting for months." "Freedom," Lazien confirms, his arm tightening around Seraya's waist. "To live as mates first, rulers second." The concept seems to both puzzle and please Maya. "I still don't understand why anyone would willingly give up absolute power once they've attained it." "That's precisely why you're perfect to lead the council," Seraya tells her with genuine warmth. "You value the power for what it can accomplish, not for its own sake." Maya's expression softens unexpectedly. "I learned that from watching you two this past year. How you've wielded authority not as a weapon, but as a tool for healing." The compliment brings a flush of pleasure to Seraya's cheeks. After a lifetime of being deemed unworthy, the respect she's earned feels like a precious gift, one she never takes for granted. "Come," Maya urges, turning back toward the main grounds. The future awaits, and it's wearing very formal attire and expecting a proper ceremony. The Great Hall, once a monument to Dravik's supremacy, has been transformed into a circular chamber where representatives from every territory sit as equals. Gone are the hierarchical platforms and imposing throne. In their place stands a round table carved from the wood of trees from each territory, a physical symbol of their new unity. As Seraya and Lazien enter, conversation falls away, the assembled delegates rising in respect. They move to the center of the chamber, where an area has been prepared for the ceremony, a shallow pool of clear water surrounded by stones from each territory's sacred places. Today marks not an ending, but a beginning, Seraya addresses the gathered wolves, her voice clear and strong. 1 year ago, we started the work of dismantling centuries of division and prejudice. Today, we take the next step in that journey. Lazien continues seamlessly, their leadership as perfectly balanced as their relationship. The time of rule by bloodline alone is over. The council you've formed today will guide our united territories with wisdom drawn from all our peoples, all our traditions. One by one, representatives from each territory approach the central pool, adding water from their homelands to the communal basin. Eastern, Western, Northern, Southern, former enemies now allies, their waters mingling as their futures intertwine. Veilran, the Eastern Alpha who once sought to bind Seraya's power, now serves as her most loyal advocate. He approaches with dignified steps, pouring crystal water from the mountain springs of his homeland. The Eastern Alliance honors the vision of the Blood Moon Princess and her chosen mate, he intones formally. May your wisdom continue to guide us even as you step back from daily rule. Murmurs of agreement ripple through the assembled wolves. The transition has been carefully planned for months, the council members selected for their commitment to the new way rather than loyalty to old bloodlines. When all waters have been combined, Seraya and Lazien move to stand on either side of the pool, their reflections merging in its still surface. With this ceremony, we transfer governing authority to the United Council, Seraya declares, her eyes meeting those of each delegate in turn. We remain as guardians and guides, but the daily decisions of our territories now rest in your hands. Choose wisely, Lazien adds, his voice carrying both warmth and warning. Remember always that you serve not your individual packs, but all wolves under our protection. Together, they kneel at the pool's edge, dipping their joined hands into the mixed waters. The liquid shimmers at their touch, Seraya's moonborn magic responding to the ritual's significance. By water that flows without boundary, they speak in unison, by moon that shines on all wolves equally, by blood that runs true regardless of rank or territory, we bind this council to the service of unity and peace. As they withdraw their hands, the water glows briefly with silver light before settling once more. The ceremony complete, the hall erupts in applause and cheers, wolves from once warring territories embracing as comrades, as equals, as pack. That evening, as twilight paints the sky in watercolor hues of purple and gold, Seraya and Lazien slip away from the celebration still going strong in the main hall. Hand in hand, they follow a hidden path through the forest to their private sanctuary, a simple cabin built beside a natural hot spring, far from the politics and formality of court life. Do you think they'll be all right without us watching over their shoulders? Seraya asks as they walk beneath towering pines, her thumb absently tracing the mating mark on Lazien's wrist. He smiles down at her, moonlight catching in his blue eyes. They'll make mistakes. All new things do. But the foundation is solid. Because of you, she says softly. Your willingness to give up your birthright made all of this possible. Lazien stops walking, turning to face her fully, his hands framing her face with gentle reverence. I gave up nothing of value, he corrects her. Everything worth having, I found in you. The cabin comes into view, smoke curling from its chimney, Maya's doing, ensuring their retreat would be warm and welcoming after the day's formalities. Beyond it, the hot spring steams in the cool evening air, promising relaxation and privacy. Home, Seraya murmurs, leaning into his touch. Wherever you are, Lazien agrees, before sweeping her into his arms with playful strength. Though I admit, the bed inside holds particular appeal after such a long day. Her laughter rings through the clearing as he carries her across the threshold, the door swinging shut behind them with a soft finality. Inside, the cabin is simple but beautiful, one large room with a comfortable bed piled with furs, a hearth where fire dances merrily, shelves lined with books and small treasures collected during their travels to unite the territories. Lazien sets her on her feet beside the fire, his hands lingering at her waist. "What shall we do with our newfound freedom, princess?" he asks, voice dropping to a husky whisper. "First," she replies, reaching up to unfasten the formal robes that feel suddenly too constraining, "we shed the trappings of leadership." His eyes darken as the heavy fabric falls away, leaving her in just the simple shift she'd worn that morning. With deliberate slowness, he follows her example, removing the ceremonial clothes until he stands before her in just his trousers, firelight playing across the defined muscles of his chest and the silver mating mark above his heart. And then, he prompts, stepping closer until barely a breath separates them. Seraya's hands rise to trace the contours of his face, the strong jaw she loves, the small scar near his temple from their battle at the temple, the lips that have whispered both devotion and desire against her skin. "Then we remember who we are beneath all titles and prophecies," she whispers. "Just Seraya and Lazien. Just two wolves who found each other against impossible odds." His answering smile holds all the love and certainty she once thought forever beyond her reach. "Just mates," he agrees, lowering his mouth to hers in a kiss that speaks of homecoming and promise and forever. Later, as they lie tangled in furs before the hearth, Seraya's head resting on Lazien's chest while his fingers trace lazy patterns along her spine, she feels the gentle press of their bond, stronger now than ever, a connection that hums with contentment and belonging. "What are you thinking?" he murmurs against her hair. She considers the question, watching firelight dance across the ceiling of their sanctuary. "I was thinking about that night in the forest, 5 years ago. When they dragged me across the border and left me to die." His arms tighten around her protectively, "Even now. I cursed fate that night," she continues softly. "I believed I'd been chosen for suffering, for exile, for loneliness." "And now?" he prompts when she falls silent. Seraya rises onto her elbow to look down at him, silver-streaked hair falling around them like a curtain. "Now I understand that rejection wasn't my ending. It was merely the first painful step on a path that led right back to you, but stronger, wiser, more worthy of the bond we share." Lazien's hand cups her cheek, his eyes shining with emotion too deep for words. In the quiet that follows, their bond speaks for them, love and gratitude flowing between souls no longer separated by magic or malice. Outside their cabin, the moon rises full and bright above the United Territories. Inside, the Blood Moon Princess and her chosen mate build their private world together, not as ruler and consort, not as Alpha and Omega, but as equals united by a love powerful enough to heal ancient wounds and forge a future bright with possibility. "I thought being rejected ended my story," Seraya whispers against his lips. "Turns out, it only delayed my beginning."